I'm Karuana, and I can't be more excited to be here with my friend from Anthropic. We're going to show you some really cool stuff today. I hope you're having a great time out there. Big shout out to our digital audience who's been following along from all over the world. So, Max, tell everybody what you do. Hey, how's it going?
So I sit right where the breakthroughs that we're making with our researchers meet actual enterprise work. So I have the pleasure of talking to our most strategic customers about what do you think we should do now, next, maybe never, maybe wait to get started on things like that. So exciting to be here. The partnership between Microsoft and Anthropic makes this conference so much fun for us. I've seen so many interesting things that are being built, and we're just excited to be here and support everything going on.
There's a lot of great energy here in San Francisco, and this is a historic location here in Port Basin. But tell me, this is your first Microsoft build, I think. Is that right? Yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, we're glad that you're here. Tell us a little bit about the partnership between our two companies. I know it's deep and wide, but help people understand how we're working together.
Yeah, so the way that we look at how we work with any kind of part of the stack for an enterprise, of which Microsoft has many different layers, is there are certain areas that are going to need the highest possible intelligence for the transformation that is to come. And then there are certain things that are infrastructure that need to exist in order to make sure that everything is working the way that the enterprise needs it to work. And then there are key things like identity, security, and governance, of course, which are all part of the same estate usually. So we try to make sure that Claude is able to operate wherever the customer wants Claude. And from the very beginning, we've taken a stance of, look, however that needs to work for you, we're going to find a way to make that available. So I think the partnership, at least from everything that my team has been saying, has been really successful in market so far, and we're excited about what's next.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And of course, you hit on something when you're talking about intelligence. We had announcements this morning about Microsoft IQ, which extends the family of IQ experiences, Work IQ, Foundry IQ, and Fabric IQ with Web IQ. And now these agents can actually operate and reason across all of those domains of intelligence and information to have a more impactful result. Tell me how you think about that in terms of what you're building and what you see enterprise customers really needing, because there's a whole conversation about value going on in these agentic projects. How do you all approach that?
The transformation that is about to take root across the economy, across all the enterprises where we're working together to help transform them, requires something that we call legibility. Legibility basically means that AI can understand what's going on in a business. Said another way, it's very hard for AI to improve something that it cannot see. And so legibility, we think, is something that every enterprise leader should be thinking about and spending some thinking cycles on. When we look at what's happening with Work IQ, especially the other IQ family now, we see that as a context layer that can make more legibility, more interpretability of what's happening in a business available for AI to improve. And this gives you two things. The first thing is that it lets you know what's going on so that you can actually see it. If you ask most businesses, what are your standard operating procedures? They'll say, well, we have these documented, but we don't actually know what all of the rest of them are.
Idea or Sally is actually doing to make something happen, right? We call that the difference between the standard procedure and the know-how, right? That sometimes is in the humans in the process. And so, yeah, there's no visibility there.
We have a lot of empathy for executive enterprise leaders who want to make the right decisions, make sure that everyone makes this transition safely, but aren't necessarily as familiar with the people working boots on the ground, familiar with the problems that they're running into on a day-to-day basis. And I think all of the leaders that I've spoken to want to be more in touch with those things, but it's the function of documentation and processes, and this is what we mean when we say legibility.
Right.
So if you can get there, then the second thing that you can do, which I'm really excited about, is you can observe what you should build in the first place. And we think this is more like the future of building technology, is observing first so that then you can infer what should you build in the first place. And that's a total flip from how technology has been built the last 20 years.
And that's directly impactful on the community that we have here at Microsoft Build as well. And plus all of us who want to make sure we're getting real value from the work that we're doing in this space, right? It's fantastic. Now, I know you have a demo. Let's play that demo.
So we'll let this play in the background. But what you're going to see is a set of experiments that we're very excited about that are starting to work when it comes to legibility and what Claude can do to tell you what to build in the first place. So what you just saw was lots of different AI tools, Copilot as well as Claude. And we have an agent in the system that's looking at every one of those transcripts and those traces. And so you're seeing now on Foundry that agent pulling out different observations that are coming from the real use of technology.
I love this view. I have to tell you how much I love this view because, you know, I've been that person where the developers and the stakeholders and the project managers, they're not aligned on what to do next. And you just showed me this beautiful way of observing what actual people are doing. Oh, and let's talk through this part.
So this is where it gets really interesting. There are two things that we've really put a lot of effort into making Claude excellent at. The first, which most people understand, is code, specifically code base comprehension, or understanding how a code base works, dependencies between different files. This is a major focus for us at Anthropic. The second is user centricity or empathy from a human perspective. And that gives Claude the ability to both empathize with the users that it's observing, running into problems, suggesting features, or doing things that might suggest features. And at the same time, it can infer what code needs to change in order to satisfy that need state. Now, this makes possible something that is very different in terms of how we build software. Usually, you would build, you'd operate, then you would put analytics on it. And you'd say, is it working? Is it being adopted? We're seeing now that model start to flip around. We are actually able to observe first to infer there, what should we build based on what needs to be actually in the operations. So this is going to change how we look at technology across the board. And I'm just so excited to actually give builders the ability to say, well, you know, we're kind of having to guess about what would work. And now they're not going to have to guess. They're going to be able to say, these are the problems that my users are running into. What can I do to provide more value? And if you can keep running that loop and that cycle, you're just creating tons more value for everybody.
There's another reason, first off, that's mind-blowing. I love watching that work. I think it's fantastic. But there's another reason I think this is important, and I'm sure you've thought about, which is making sure that businesses are implementing AI in meaningful ways, right? And growing the top line, using AI as a way to go further, go faster, come up with new things. For me, AI isn't about efficiencies and what have you, though that can be one of the outcomes. It's really about innovation and what you can do next. And so I feel like this helps builders and developers have those conversations with their stakeholders as they're thinking about where to invest their time and resources, right?
We completely agree. This is why we think that high intelligence is so important. Because if you can get the intelligence right, there's an infinite demand for it, number one. And number two is, if you think that you're limited by your ability to create value for your customer, intelligence will help you figure out how can you remove those blockers in the first place. So it's funny because I feel like very soon AI strategy will also involve just kind of ask Claude what to do, right? And that's a great outcome because that means that we can also help people figure out what to do in the first place and then how to get it right. And I think a lot of leaders are struggling comparing those two, the problem space and the solution space and wondering which to focus on first. Hopefully we can finesse that problem.
I also think you mentioned leaders in that conversation, and I think that leaders and builders and the people who manage them and invest in them need to understand that this requires a certain degree of both courage and a release of control. Now, I do this every day. I talk to my agents, I talk to my Copilot experiences and have them work with me through problems and give me ideas and think about how I should think about things. But I feel like I've learned how to do that over the last couple of years. And I've had to let go of the control that I might always be right. Do you see people doing that? Do you see leaders leaning in to actually using AI in that way?
Yes. Some of the most meaningful moments working with our enterprise customers are when they understand the potential there. And I'll give you one kind of piece of advice that we've seen work pretty much across the board. I mean, you could take the startups out of this, but that's a little apples and oranges. If you release a policy memo and say, this is what you're supposed to use AI for, and this is what you're not supposed to use AI for, what works much better is having a non-technical senior leader demo and show the organization, this is what I use AI for, to inform my decisions, to try to do my job better. That sort of openness and vulnerability, it signals the right things. And that's when we see these adoption numbers change. And the human factors there can't be summarized by what would be made more efficient, because we want to bring as many people with us on this transformation. The problem is that unless you're actually using it and getting in the reps and having those moments where the penny drops and you go, wow, I can ask it to ask me questions, right? These are the things that we think more and more people are going to be discovering as we roll out these tools, and of course, in partnership with Microsoft for all the enterprises that we serve.
Absolutely. And we call that finding your aha moment in the user adoption realm. And there's no replacement for having somebody visibly learning in front of other people. It signals that proper cultural transformation that actually precedes the frontier transformation that we're always talking about, and the workforce one that I talk about a lot myself. Yep. So this is your first Microsoft Build, and we have such a fantastic partnership together. What are you excited that we're going to do together next?
I think the legibility conversation has required both of our organizations to become more compatible with each other, and also to provide the value in the different pieces of the stack that only we can uniquely provide. And I think that's something that we should double and triple down on. In the beginning, when everyone started to use AI in their personal lives, I don't know about you, but I wore out the copy and paste button on my keyboard, right? We were just constantly moving context from one thing to another. And then we entered the tool calling era with Anthropic's release of MCP. And now we're starting to get to the point where once you can get all of the information that is describing the work that's happening, you can really root cause analysis all of these opportunities to improve it. That, I think, should be our North Star together.
That is fantastic. I'm so inspired by the work that's happening in Anthropic and across the space at large. And I know that all of you probably are as well. There's a lot of fantastic demos, including a deeper dive in the one that we showed today, right on the showcase page, that sponsor page that you have. And I think everybody should go check it out, because you're going to want to follow along and make sure that you understand how to have this conversation in the enterprise with the developers and the builders that you have, and how to just dig in right now and get things going. That's very important. Like, get your hands on a keyboard, test these things out, make sure you understand, and then come back to our communities and have the conversation with other builders who are doing this work, because we're all in this together. I firmly believe that AI is a team sport, and we have to do this together for it to have the greatest benefits. So I am really excited that you're here. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's following along. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.